only one place to start in our club roundup, lads, and that's up in Antrim. 3 in a row for Dunloy. They've won 4 of the last 5 titles. Big celebrations. I thought there was a real county final sense of occasion around this one, Niall, because the camera go to the crowd. There's a whole load of children in the Dunloy colours, and it seemed to be more Dunloy than Donovan Rossa. They seemed to put a lot of effort into getting the community out here into a county final to support them. And then they invaded the field at the final whistle. That's probably the nicest thing about the game, because there was not an awful lot to say about the match.
Yeah, there was a huge crowd of youngsters behind the goals yesterday in Corrigan Park, and it just kind of, it told you, I call them the Dunloy Ultras there on the GA Joe page, but it just told you it was county final day straight away. I suppose that, as you said, it was probably the best thing about the match. It was slightly disappointing, I suppose, having watched the Antrim final last year, and it was very exciting that day between Dunloy and Lochiel. You were kind of looking forward to something similar here today, but Dunloy, they kind of got their goal early on, and any time there was a lot of wides early on, but any time Donovan Rossa came close, Dunloy seemed to get a goal and stretch away, and that was it really.
Yeah, whenever they get a goal, they'd follow it up with a point as well. So got 1-1, then didn't do much, then got another 1-1, didn't do much, got another 1-1, and kind of was over kind of at that stage. I like the way Dunloy, they won the county final last year, Lee, and they did a open. Went on the back of a lorry or something through the town. They seemed to put a lot of effort in, and there was wild celebrations. Usually, I suppose 3 in a row is a big thing. I tried to get them on the show today, and I was told very politely, you won't get any of us on the show today. The show tomorrow we'll be in the pub. I said, I'll do the interview early. We go to the pub very early. So they put it, obviously it's a county final, but there seemed to be a bit of a sense of occasion around it for Dunloy.
Yeah, they really live and breathe it up there. Up in Dunloy, North Antrim in particular, like Lochiel, Glenarth, Ballycastle, hurling is everything. It's not really in Ulster as in general. Football is obviously the main sport, but in North Antrim, it is everything. You go to Dunloy and you can't, you look out your window and it's just kids and they're carrying their hurls absolutely everywhere. It's just an extension of their arm at this stage. So 3 in a row, 6 in a row, 10 in a row, they'll go mad for all of them because it just means so much to them.
Yeah, Conall Conning was man of the match. He looked like he was on another level, to be fair. Really has a bit about him. Keelan Malloy, I was keeping my eye out for Keelan Malloy because he's a player that I like. And he never really got on the ball at all. He was marking a fella called Declan Murphy, and who caught my eye before the ball was even thrown in, because Donovan Rossa have blue socks with a yellow stripe, but Declan decided he was going with the yellow sock pulled up with a blue stripe. They could have been Sweden soccer socks or something like that. He had his 2 wrists taped with messages on them, and he had white boots. What kind of a hurling person is this, Niall?
Yeah, he caught my eye straight away. Well, he kind of went the whole hog shape in there yesterday, between the socks, the wristbands, everything, but
he was on the freeze then too.
And as well as that, he had the biceps were bulging. He was a bit of a walking bench press of a man as well. But he really stood out. And I it's not too often you'd see that on a hurling field, a lad. Well, I suppose in football either, people don't wear the socks up anymore. It used to be kind of a thing. I remember Lark Corbett used to do it. A good few players used to do it, but the socks are a lot smaller now. It seems to be the fashion. But Declan was doing it for the boys that used to do it, and he kept it going.
No, he definitely was. There today, obviously, lost to Slough-Nail in the 2019 Ulster Club Final. 115 to 10 points. So they're back into the mix now again. It'll probably be Slough-Nail that they're playing. You were watching Coal Island break Eden Dork hearts. I'm an Eden Dork fan this year after doing a live show up there and getting the tour of the village and the whole lot, and there was commented that Coal Island are only out the road there. There's only 5 kilometres out the road, and they're the more successful club, and Eden Dork were blowing them away, Lee, and Coal Island broke their hearts with 2 late goals to beat them.
Yeah, what a game. Eden Dork, they really suffered throughout the league without Niall Morgan, Darren McCurry and Colin Kilpatrick. I think they were in a relegation battle and everything, but this time round they've got all the players and they were flying form, especially in the first quarter. Niall Morgan, it's the first time I'd actually watched him for a full game outfield. He is such a good footballer. He was excellent. He was up against Michael McKernan in Kilkenny in midfield, and he really took it to him early. McCurry got a goal early on as well. Colin Kilpatrick just fetching everything. They built such a high lead early on, and the pace that they set, it really looked like a huge upset was on the cards. Then late in the game, you're talking, we're into injury time at this stage. two late Kilkenny goals, and then a point from a free kick just to seal the deal. And they ended up winning by 2 points. And I was telling you before the show, Niall Morgan, like standing midfield, and the camera was sort of just behind him, and he was watching the Kilkenny forward like break through on goal, and he just had his hands on his head. He knew what was coming. He knew what was going to happen, and he just had on footage his heart actually breaking.
Jesus, like I mean, I don't. So they're 5 points up in injury time, and then they lose by two. It's absolutely heartbreaking. Whatever team I support, if I row in behind a team, just forget about it. You're not winning anything that year. The Canavans were flying it for Ergal Kieran, another team of mine. Whenever I do a live show, that I kind of adopt that team. Ergal Kieran, Dara scored 1-4, and Rory scored 5 points.
Yeah, I mean, like I think every Tyrone fan is really excited about watching, or if we're watching Argyll here, it's purely to see Dar Canavan, because we didn't actually get seeing too much of him for Tyrone this year, and there's been so much hype and so much build up, and it's all, to be fair, fairly justified, because any moments that he has got onto the field, he's been absolutely excellent. He's played some key parts in this season, despite actually not being involved that much. So in club football, seeing him fully fit and watching him work his magic, like, it is something else, to be fair. He's playing because Joe Brawley always tweets that he's playing. He's obsessed with him. Keeps calling him the son of God. He thinks he's the next big thing in football, like, if not already. And now there's another one. So Rory was excellent. I mean, 5 points, and everyone says, "Oh, it's that old cliche in football. Like, he's good, but you should see the brother." And it's another situation here.
Is Rory supposed to be better?
I don't even. People are just. I think it's just the go-to thing to say. You have to say that the younger one's better, but apparently, yeah, his pace is meant to be frightening. People talk about that a lot, and how exciting it is when he'll start to break through for sure. But like like, has Dara even really broke through yet? Like, we're still on
No.
that journey, with him, and looking forward to seeing him really become a more seasoned player, and getting the best out of him.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we get on to All Stars. He was nominated for Young Player of the Year, and I might have a few issues with that decision. One other Tyrone bit of news is Carrickmore beat Oma, and Conor Gormley and Martin Penrose, fellas of my generation, came on. I think they're both must be 40, 41. Conor Gormley obviously won an All Ireland in 2003. They both came on in the full forward line, and I'm completely against this. I've told you this before, Niall. You think all down through the years, older players were put out to pasture in the full forward line, but you're being marked by a young lad. It sounds good. Oh, you don't have to run, you don't have to follow someone, but you're being marked by a young fella. And how do you meant to get out in front of him? Now, maybe Conor Gormley would have the strength to win some ball. It just seems to me that when there's an out lad, put him in the full forward line. Instead of going, how can we get this out lad free around the midfield to get him on a ball or two, and maybe calm the whole game down?
I suppose it's the old cliche, like the most of the run will take place the further out the field you are, whether you're midfield or the half forward. And I suppose a lot of these lads, maybe they're just like the likes of Conor Gormley, maybe they're just clever enough that they don't have to do all this movement. They let the young lads kind of do the running or whatever and run up the field. But the out lads, they're clever, they're able to read the game, and they're able to kind of get on the breaks and maybe take their scores. The boys certainly seem to be doing the jobs a bit inside there anyway.
Yeah, because in fairness, Penrose would have been a similar enough player to me in that a lot of his game would have been based around pace and getting out in front. When you lose that, you're a bit like me. You're just shite. You're left with nothing. Gormley maybe would have plenty of strength, and he'd be a very clever player. Kerry semi-finals, Lee, one exciting game. Kenmare beat Dingle 17-113. Sean O'Shea scored 11. Okay, I don't know what it is. Apparently his last free, a good few of them were frees. His last free was a really, really difficult one. And whenever you see Sean O'Shea run up 15 points, 11 points, he's consistently doing it. I kind of always dismiss the frees as in, most of them were frees. But Sean O'Shea scores frees from the sideline, from way out at distance. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're not always regular frees that he scores. So, like, I mean, they set up a final against Austin Stacks, who hammered Temple No 3-9-4. Austin Stacks, a weird one, have no real standout inter-county stars like Ken Mayer, but it's a repeat of last year's final.
Yeah, on the Sean O'Shea thing, like, he is a special sort of player. We were picking our own, like, All-Star Sports Joe All-Stars of the year, and we opted for him ahead of, like, Paddy Clifford, who typically everyone was talking about, like, what a brilliant season he's had and stuff. But I mean, Sean O'Shea was the top scorer of the county season this year entirely. He's just so clinical, and like you say, the shots that he takes and the angles. and like top nearly out in the sideline and stuff. I mean, like what a weapon to have in your arsenal, and just knowing it just settles the whole team, knowing that every time you get it fouled, there's actually a scoring opportunity at the end of this, and then it unnerves the opposition who are like, "God, I can't even afford to foul this guy here." There isn't even like a safe place,
Yeah.
because it's gonna like result in us losing the score. So yeah, it sets up a really interesting final, and it's good to see Sean bring his county form into the club.
Yeah, and that Kenmare win was in Dingle as well, so it was an away game, and that was the Dingle or Kenmare lost to Austin Stacks in last year's final. So, like, I mean, that's going to be an interesting final. Obviously, we know that this is just a club championship in Kerry. The county championship is coming afterwards, but if an area team win that out, it's the winners of the club championship that will go through to the Munster club, and often those area teams do win it. Patrickswell beating the Piershig. This was a big one in Limerick, Niall. Probably a bit of a surprise, but when you look through the Piershig team, they don't have that kind of danger of the Piershig teams in the All-Ireland final because of injuries. And, Dowling and the two Caseys are the obvious injury ones, and David Breen is gone. And they just don't have that, I don't know, do they have that fear factor there?
Yeah, like when I seen this result this morning, Wally, I was kind of thinking, like, is this the end of the kind of the Piershig empire? Like, they've been going since I think it's 2013 when they first won an All-Ireland club. But like they're still, like, I looked at the result from last year's county final. They won that by like 20 points, so you couldn't write them off yet. But certainly, like, a lot of them lads that sort of, I suppose, the backbone of their team, their brilliant team, the likes of David Breen, he's gone. There's other lads kind of pushing on as well. Cathal King, he was their former captain, he's not there anymore. And certainly then when the two young guns in Michael and Peter Casey aren't there, like, that's obviously going to be a huge loss for a team like that. And at the same time, like, Patrickswell, they won that county title. Well, this team, they won their first one in 2016. But these lads now, the likes of Cian Lynch, Aaron Gillan, Dermot Burns, like, they're 5 years older now. So they're probably, I know it's kind of tit for tat between Na Piarsaigh and Patrickswell, but the Patrickswell lads are really coming into their peak now, and there's a few more younger lads like Jason Gillan we talked about last week as well, coming on to sort of drive that team on too.
So it was the two O'Brien brothers and not the two Gillan brothers that did all the damage.
Yeah, well, the Gillans did a bit, in fairness. They scored 11 points, but it was Kevin and Thomas O'Brien who did most of the damage. Like, I remember coming across Kevin O'Brien. He was on the UL Fitzgibbon team back, that was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, but he was always a great man to score a goal and to pop up with a big goal. He scored goals in Fitzgibbon Cup finals as well. And, like, I don't think he's got too much of a run with Limerick, like, and he's probably 29 or 30 now, but he's just been a key player for Patrickswell. He's a very fast kind of a corner forward and a great man to pop up with a goal when they need them. So I suppose, like, for any team playing Patrickswell, you think you've stopped them. You've the two Gillans stopped, but there's two O'Briens there as well. Like, and I suppose to have two brothers in the forward line as well, two sets of brothers. There's a lot of telepathy going on there. I always find I play with my brother on our club team, and it's nearly the easiest person to give a pass to. You just know where they're going to go.
Yeah, no, it definitely. I don't know what it is about Patrickswell. Like, I mean, they have a good team on paper. I saw them against Ballygunner in the Munster Club. Not last year. There was no Munster Club the year before. I know Ballygunner are excellent, but Patrickswell were desperate that day. Like, and that wasn't their first county title in a long time. 16 was. So you would have thought in 2019, right? We won it in 16. Let's win it. If we win it again, let's actually give Munster a push. They were dreadful that day altogether. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to judge them on that one game.
I suppose sometimes teams, when they win the county title, they can maybe, as you were talking to the Dunlye boys this morning, some people can get carried away with it. But now that they're back in another final, I'd say if they won that, they'd love to give Munster a push, because especially players of the calibre of Cian Lynch, Aaron Gillan, Dermot Burns, like, the three of them, you're not going to get three better players in the club team anywhere. Like,
yeah, no, that's true. Alan Connolly scored a goal yesterday that we see a lot in soccer. So anyone that didn't watch Blackrock beat St Finbarrs, he didn't beat St Finbarrs. He didn't miss too much because it was a one-sided game. Alan Connolly, my man, big fan of Alan Connolly. He scored, I think, 3-6 alone in the second half. But he scored a goal where you're running in, the goalkeeper's going to clear it, and he came in and blocked it down and went into the net. Now, you see a lot of this in soccer league where, like, in whatever level of soccer, where the goalkeeper, a lad rushes in and blocks it and suddenly it's a goal. Well, you never see it really in Gaelic games, so it was a very unusual goal that he scored.
Yeah, it was definitely unusual. The goalkeeper, I don't know, they just commit more in soccer or something, in the way that they come out. But yeah, it was an unusual one. But like, I think he was just having one of them days that any football put in front of him and in any position, he was going to find a way to put it in the back of the net.
Yeah, any hurling ball really, Niall.
Yeah, exactly.
My bad. That's the Ulster in me.
It is an unusual one. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a goal scored like that, where a lad just comes in and literally blocks the goalie down,
Yeah,
and it
and
goes
when you
into
think
the
about
net.
it, there should really, shouldn't there?
There should, like,
you see it in rugby where they charge down, whatever,
the kick,
the out half.
Yeah, exactly. We got there. No rugby on this show, but yeah, like, I suppose it should be coming in more now, especially when, like, goalkeepers, they're not just driving the ball out now. They're taking their time. They're trying to pick a pass to the corner backs. They're trying to drill a puck out maybe to the half back line. So there is an opportunity for any forward coming in there. And like, it was Alan Connolly, like, fair play to him. He did his job yesterday. He chased down. It looked like a bit of a lost cause, like the full back.
Yeah.
He kind of hung back. Well, like, he's not going to run into his goalie, but he was probably banking on the goalie. But Connolly was in like a hare. And like, he chased his last cause and he got his reward for it.
Yeah, no, he definitely did. There was loads of drama in the Kilkenny hurling championship. Tommy Walsh scored a goal in extra time. Tyrone beat Clara, so they're in the semi-final. Like, I mean, this is crazy. Like, I mean, Tyrone came up from intermediate. It took them years to get up out of intermediate. Now they should have been getting up, and then they did. And then they drew with Ballyhale Shamrocks when they got up to senior, but they were in a relegation. They're in a relegation semi-final last year. Now they won the semi-final. Now I know it's cut rate. Now they find themselves in a senior semi-final.
Yeah, like, there is an argument to say, Wooly, that like, Kilkenny Club hurling is the strongest that you will find. There's only 12 teams in the senior championship, and it's the same in the intermediate. And like, a lot of people would say that between intermediate and senior, there is absolutely nothing between a lot of the teams. Like, like
12 is a very small number, really.
Yeah, I suppose there's less clubs in Kilkenny than there is in the likes of Galway and Tipperary. So like, these clubs that are there, they're all there because they deserve to be there. And like, Tyrone, like, that just shows that there was 2 years they were beaten in semi-finals, they were beaten in finals in that intermediate grade.
Yeah.
And it was only the third year when they got over the line. And now, like, they're up in senior level. Sure, last year their first game up they drew at Ballyhale. So it shows, like, in Kilkenny Club hurling, every club really is kind of like thereabouts if they can get a bit of momentum. And Tyrone certainly have a bit of momentum this year. Like, the lads that I suppose that have been the backbone of their intermediate team, they're really kicking on and pushing on in senior level. Like, Pádraig Walsh, apparently he was absolutely unbelievable yesterday. Like, he starts centre forward, scores a few points, and then when Tyrone are like defending, trying to hold their lead, he's back centre back. Like what a sign that is of a player that he can play anywhere.
Yeah.
But you'd know by him that he'd be able to do that anyway.
Yeah, well, there's no secret he played centre forward for a long time, and then Tommy switched to the forwards and he switched back into the backs, and then they won it kind of with that. I think he got 6 from play. I saw some of the highlights of that with Pádraig Walsh. But we were mentioning the draw with Ballyhale. It's very easy draw with Ballyhale in the first round, but you get Ballyhale into the quarter final. They spanked Bennett's Bridge. We were talking about that last Thursday. They really own Cody 6 from play or something.
Yeah, sure. Bennett's Bridge beat Ballyhale in the group stage this year, and yesterday they only scored 1 point from play in the second half. Like, I was actually listening to this game on the radio because I actually had Bennett's Bridge backed. I was thinking this could be the day Ballyhale will be beaten, but what a fool I was. Like, Ballyhale, when it comes to knockout hurling, they just turn it on. Like, and they were missing the 2 Mullins, Paddy Mullen and Adrian Mullen yesterday, but there was new lads in. There was a Joe Cuddy, he scored 4 points from play. Like, I know he's been on and off the team the last few years, but to step up and do that, like in the first half when they were struggling too, is a great sign of player. There was a new lad in corner forward, Liam Barron. He got 1 or 2 points as well. But just
how the hell did they do it?
They're just always churning out these brilliant players. And like, Owen Cody, he was exceptional yesterday. Like, just watching the highlights, the speed, he just seems to have taken on not just his speed, but his score and his shooting. Everything has gone up a notch. Like, I'd say he's going to be like, he's already obviously a class hurler, having won 2 young hurlers of the year, but like, he's really improving again. But just watching Ballyhale, Wooly, like, they just seem to have this style where every player gives the simple kind of short pass. They're so clever on the ball. Like, even the likes of Tej Reid, there was so many times yesterday the simple score was on for him, but he'd look for the pass, whether it's a young lad outside, and Colin Fennelly was the same. And that's just, when them 2 boys are doing that, the young lads are going to do it too, and what you have is a brilliant team then.
True. Colin Fennelly, I'd say he'd be hungry then as well this year with the club, after not being in with the county. The other 2, James Stevens beat Dixborough. Owen Larkin came on, settled the ship down. Number 17, he's 38. So you have Tommy Walsh 38, Owen Larkin 38, still doing it for the clubs. Paddy Deegan, watch. We talked about him. Paddy Deegan, 1-1. Full forward.
I hope Brian Cody was watching. Paddy Deegan, yeah, like it was a good win for O'Loughlin Gales. Like they're always thereabouts in Kilkenny Club hurling. They haven't won the title in a good few years now, but they had a good win over Mullinavat. But then again, they've Tyrone in the next round. Like Tyrone will probably be happy with that draw.
Yeah,
like when
that's winnable for both, right?
Winnable for both. There'll be two very good semi-finals. Like, should we remember the Ballyhale James Stevens one last year when Cheddar was out over the rafters in Nolan Park? He was barely able to look anymore. But definitely, like, it's like what a brilliant championship it is in Kilkenny.
That was a semi-final last year too, wasn't it? Poor
was.
Cheddar.
It was.
Nearly had a heart attack.
James Stevens probably, they'll think they should have won that game. Like, they were winning for large parts, but as Ballyhale do, they came back with a vengeance when it really mattered. Like, so James Stevens, second year in a row to get them now, they'll be mad to win this one. Like,
yeah, definitely will. St Vincent's are out in Dublin League. They were beaten by Castleknock. Jeez, they really are on the slide, in fairness, St Vincent's. Like, I mean, no team, brilliant and all as they were, can stay around forever. We mentioned Mossy Quinn. He's 40 and he's still playing. Now listen, that's to be admired. But at a club with like St Vincent's, if you have a 40-year-old still playing senior, now we know how good Mossy is. It shouldn't really happen at the big clubs, because even like I see it in Portlaoise, the minute a fella starts getting older, give the young lad a chance. There's no real, whether that's the right attitude or not, who's better is the question. But it just does say a little bit for Vincent's what they have coming through. And maybe they're like my club Portlaoise, where they might have maybe a few years, barren years before they start building up and, have good underage teams again. Maybe they could be on that, because usually when you see a 40-year-old playing, Diarmuid Connolly didn't play with them at all this year. Apparently he played one intermediate league. And, he's well capable of still playing senior. They just look, it's a little bit sad to see St Vincent's, because they were such a brilliant club, brilliant champions, Leinster champions, All-Ireland champions, to see them not even making the knockout stages now.
Yeah, sad is the word, to be honest. That whole Mossy Quinn thing, it's like you say, he is an excellent player and he's so key for them. But why is he so key for them? Because obviously there's nothing better coming through, or someone who could at least push him, for that starting place. Like Mossy Quinn, and thinking in better teams or in other teams, he'd be coming off the bench this last 10 minutes and throwing him into full forward, like Conor Gormley, except that's his actual position, of course, but they're still so dependent on him, and that you just have to point to the fact that, like, there's no conveyor belt of young players of the ilk that they need to compete at that level. The Diarmuid Connolly ones, I mean, it's a bit sad as well, just, because there's so much attention always based around him, so you're always keeping an eye out for him. That was kind of the fun of watching St Vincent's, was that you got to see Diarmuid Connolly play in a more free role that he maybe would have done at Dublin, and be a lot more involved. I don't know what his reasoning was. I mean, he was involved with Dublin, was it 2019? So, like, obviously he's going to be well fit still to play club football at senior level. I don't know why he's not there. He's such an enigma, but it's definitely a big miss. And yeah, I think transitional years is the word that they're going to have to use to mask the near future anyway.
Yeah, Connolly's a weird one. He never really recovered from that push on the suspension he got in the Carlow game that day, because he missed all that championship. Came back then, came back for the semi-final, but only got a minute at the very end, and then played a bit of the final. Then was gone, and then went to America. And he's like, ever since that push, he was, a few little controversial moments until that push, but it just kind of, that was the end of it. Then after that, to the point where he's just showing up for his club for an intermediate game, one league game this year. I'd say the man's just sick of it. He's just, I'm done with that. I'm done with all that.
Yeah, ever since that Carlow game, it kind of did seem to sort of take its toll on him, and it's been very stop-start since then. But like, we got a house up in Dublin, we're right beside the St Vincent pitch, like, and we'd be going out for a few pucks or a few kicks, and anytime you're there, you're kind of keeping the eyes peeled to see if you get a spot of Diarmuid Connolly, like, and it just shows, I suppose, what an icon he is, like. But
I wonder, is he hurling with Vincent? Did he hurl with Vincent? I'm not too sure about that. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, because he seems to be happy enough with the hurling. Maybe he's just fed up with the football.
Yeah. Well, he has the name made already anyway. I don't know. I don't think he's playing with the hurlers this year, Willie. So yeah, it's disappointing for the club.
Yeah, definitely. Defending champions out in Roscommon and in Kildare. So Padraig Pearses, who were the nearly men in Roscommon football for so long, they won it 2 years ago. Then they lost to Bridget's last year in the semi-final, and now they've beaten St. Bridget's to get back into the final. So there's loads of competition. Clonagale, who was Liam Kearns' club, they beat Roscommon Gales 8-6. Right exciting one, that one, by the looks of the scoreboard. It's always a weird one in these counties. Like, a tie are out in Kildare. A tie won it last year. they had a chance to draw it last kick of the game. James Eaton had a free and it went wide. But 3 different winners in the Roscommon Championship in the last 3 years. Clonagale, St. Bridget's, Pierce's, and in Kildare the same thing. Sarsfields, Moorfield, who have dropped back into the pack, and a tie. And it seems like in these counties, Lee, and Tyrone is the perfect example of it, and even Derry as well. When teams are very evenly matched, it's very hard to retain it. You know, that little ingredient of hunger is gone. And it's always the team that maybe has lost out the year or two previous that comes back up, gets the revenge, and here we go again.
Yeah, that's it. And then I think instead of being the hunter, you become the hunted, sort of thing. You know, so like whoever wins it, you know, that's the team now to beat. Like, so Tyrone this year, the Gannon Clarks, they're actually the defending champions. But I mean, it was, people said it was a miracle last year. You know, the journey that they went on to get through and actually win it. It would be nearly twice the miracle for them to defend it, I think, with all the competition in and around them, and the fact that now people have them down to a T, you know, and they're going to be going up against them. They're not going to be underestimating them. That definitely won't be a factor. And it's the same in all these other counties as well. The hunger is a thing for sure. You do get a bit of a hangover from winning a county title, and you bring that into next year. And I think just a slight complacency, and it's just like, this isn't everything to me because I've done it. You know, I mean, there can be that element to it, but I mean, I much prefer it than these counties that, you know, or the same club wins 3 in a row, 4 in a row, and it gets a bit mundane.
Yeah, no, that's it. And it's often the case where teams win 3 in a row, 4 in a row, they're a good bit better than the others. So even that slight drop off still is enough to get them over the line. Like Tipperary Hurling Championship, same thing. They're all, you know, able to beat each other. You win it, you slightly drop off. You know, you're not at that same pitch. Someone comes up, dethrones you, and it, you know, it's like that every year now.
Yeah, like it's kind of, Club GA is funny. Like it's a bit about hunger, and a lot of it though I think is about momentum too. Like, you know, like because club players, they're not like county players where like that the confidence, they're just going to have it like from all these good games that they've played down through the years. I think confidence is a lot more brittle maybe in club players, and like when things start to go against them, when the momentum isn't with them anymore, things can just kind of start to go downhill a small bit. So that, I suppose, opens it up a lot more in Club GAA. Like obviously you have the sort of the super clubs, the likes of Ballyhale, that keep winning every year, but in other counties it is exciting when there's different winners every year, I suppose.
No, it definitely is. So there's huge drama in Galway, hurling championship. So Sarsfields are out. They played Loughrea, and there was a last puck of the game penalty. And if Sarsfields had scored it, they went through. And if they didn't score it, Loughrea went through. Am I right in saying this? And the goalkeeper, I have to give him a shout out, Garrod Loughnane, great famous hurling name, surname anyways. He saved it, so Loughrea go through, Sarsfields are out.
Exactly, like if Sarsfields had scored that penalty, it would have meant that Loughrea and Sarsfields were on the exact same score difference, and Sarsfields would only have went through on points scored. Right. They would have had something like 5 more points scored than Loughrea, and they won that game by 6 points. So Sarsfields they'll feel slightly aggrieved to have won 2 games in the Senior A and to still be going out with the group stages. Because as you said, Wooly, I spent, I think it was about an hour this morning trying to get my head around this Galway Championship, and it's sort of a confusing one. But there's 24 senior teams in Galway. 12 of them are Senior A, 12 of them are Senior B. And I suppose
the Senior B is like nearly the intermediate grade, or years ago.
It's the same in Tipperary. Like we've Senior A and Senior B.
Are they equal teams?
But Senior B, you see, no, like they've been sort of relegated down to that, or they were relegated down to that grade.
Right.
But in Tipperary, we've a separate Senior B championship. In Galway, the Senior B grade, the group stages, like there's 12 teams in both. It feeds into the one senior championship for knockout.
Right.
And you'd probably say it would be fair if there was maybe 9. There's 12 teams going through to the knockout stages.
6 and 4, or 6 and 3,
or
maybe
9 and 3, say 9 and 3, but it's actually 6 and 6. So
the exact same amount of teams out of the lower division go into the next phase, preliminary quarterfinals, as the teams in the A.
Well, the
seventh team in the A championship doesn't make the knockouts, but the 6th team in the second division makes the knockouts. That doesn't make much sense.
It doesn't make much sense, but like the group winners from Senior A, they go through straight to the quarterfinal, and in Senior B they go to the preliminary quarterfinal. But like Sarsfields will be thinking, like, we won 2 games in Senior A. Portumna and Porrick Pierce has won 1 game in Senior B, and they're going through to the
Right.
preliminary quarterfinals. Like, so it's just they will feel very aggrieved about that.
How
And
how new is this championship?
I like, it's been there, the Senior B, I think it's there the last 2 or 3 years now, and it's just, I suppose it's really only come to a head at this point yesterday.
When you
But,
see a Sarsfield, so they could change it, because that doesn't seem right. Let's be fair. If you're winning 2 Senior A games versus a team winning 1 Senior B, and they go through and you're sitting on your arse.
No, like, it just doesn't seem too fair, in fairness. But like, yeah, as you said, like, Garrod Lucknan, that was a brilliant save he made, and I just remember him because we played against him in schools games coming up along. He used to be out the field, and he, like, what a brilliant player he was. Like, he was a brilliant player race, but he's back in goals, and just the drama, you could sense it from watching that highlights there in Duggan Park yesterday in Ballinasloe. Like, to have your whole club's fate coming down to one puck, I'd say everyone between, there was kids behind the goals, they were jumping up and down at the end of it. And
But there's no way they would have known this. How we're barely able to get the calculations done here today. Never mind live with that penalty. Like, they wouldn't have known what was riding on it, would
well,
they?
I seen the Sarsfields lad, he was raging straight away, and the Lochray lad, he was fist pumping, doing a big Ric Flair in front of the crowd. Like, so I'd say, do you know, when there was a stoppage in play, the message must have
Got
maybe
out.
the kids were just, they'd have probably went mad anyway.
One way or another, yeah, maybe that's it. So 2 more players. We gave Mossy Quinn and we gave Owen Kelly a big shout out. This week it's definitely Brian Carroll. Talking about rolling back the years, 315 for Kildare. Our own Brian Carroll here on the show, like, sensational stuff. And look, Kildare scored 627, and I'm running down that, still 315. The man's 38 years of age. Like, give me a break here.
Like, I remember Molly, he scored, remember it was 216 he scored against Ballyboden in that Leinster Club semi-final. Like, sure, that was a close game. That game went all the way to extra time
in that,
like, so you know, it just shows Brian Carroll, he still has it. And as we were saying, Tommy Walsh earlier, they were in the same year in school in St. Kieran's College. He's still going. There's Owen Larkin coming on for James Stevens. Maybe you'll be making your comeback for Portlaoise while you get on the phone to the manager.
They're sprightly 38-year-olds. Like, I'm up in the 43. I'm in the 40 category. My next mention is definitely in the 40 category. He's 46, Brendan Cummins, playing intermediate for his club. Intermediate relegation match for Ballybacon. I'd never heard Ballybacon Grange.
Ballybacon Grange, that's the one.
Jesus, is that always his club, yeah?
Yeah.
Never heard of that before. Ballybacon Grange. He scored 10 points, saved 3 penalties in a penalty shootout. Then went down, consoled the other goalkeeper who had obviously let in more goals than him to show what a great, sportsman he is. Like, I mean, Jesus, it doesn't get more dramatic than that. I think he scored a point from play. That's unconfirmed, but I think he did.
Yeah, that man, certainly he owes his club nothing, does he? Like, at 46 years of age, to be still in between the sticks. And like, it was an intermediate relegation semi-final, and as we know, like, all them relegation semi-finals, they're just tense and there's so much nerves, like, because the future of the club is at stake, really. And
are the intermediate club, or is that their second team?
No, they're an intermediate club. Yeah,
so that's their first team, right?
I think, like, Brendan Cummins, like, he played football for Clip as well. Like, it's maybe not a completely hurling area. I'd say it's a mix between the hurling and the football. Yeah. Down there, but like, it was brilliant.
He was a great footballer. I remember he used to give me lifts. We both made the compromise rules trials back in 1998. I hate talking about this, and he used to pick me up in Portlaoise because I was too young. I wasn't driving. I always liked Brendan Cummins. He's fantastic. So this is get your head around this, Lee. He's 46. This is his club's first team now. It's not going down through the grades. Look, go on, we'll play you with the second team, third team. This is the team they're training all year for. This is a relegation semi-final, so it's a huge game. He scores 10 points, 1 from play as a goalie, and saves 3 penalties in the penalty shootout. And of course, relegation semi-finals always make me funny. You celebrate not making the final, which is a kind of a unique thing.
I mean, wow. It's kind of giving me hope, because maybe I'm going to peak in my 30s or my 40s, and I will actually become a good footballer. All my 20s is actually my development years, so that's what I'm going to be telling people from now on, because that's just outrageous, to get any sort of performance like that in the way. I'm beginning to wonder too, is it because of this new under 17 rule, where isn't it 17-year-olds, they can't play senior football anymore, when they used to be able to? So maybe we've sort of lost like a whole generation of players, or you have to hold them back for like an extra year. And especially for, I know you at a big enough club, but like in the smaller clubs, and then you become too reliant on the older fellas who are still allowed to play. I'm just wondering if that's still a factor,
Maybe it is.
or
I saw Donegal club, Martin Shuvlin's club, complaining about this. Shuvlin obviously played when he was 60. Now couldn't field the team, so they were pulling in 50-year-olds, 40-year-olds, just because they'd been fined if they didn't field a team. But they were making the wider point in that if they could play the 17-year-olds in the club, they might not have had to use these 60-year-olds, or whatever. I do agree that for a rural club, a 17-year-old is well good enough to be playing senior for his club. And it probably is, Niall. What's your take? I think for a rural club, it's very unfair when they're struggling for numbers. They could have 3 good 17-year-olds that sitting on their arses doing nothing. Now, they'll obviously have them the following year, but it does penalise them. I think a 17-year-old's good enough, big enough, if it's a good size of a fella.
Yeah, like I need look no further than my own club, because we had a fella on the county minors this year, and he's a big, strong fella. He's stronger than the majority of us lads who are on the senior team, and we nearly spent the whole year waiting. We'll be like, geez, well, Dara can play. He can play next year, but you'd love to have a lad like that, and especially when it's a rural club, like these sort of lads who are on county minor teams, they don't come around like too often. So when you have them, like you really want them to be on your senior team, and like the 17-year-olds nowadays, a lot of them are in the gym. Like they're well able to play senior hurling or football, and you would wonder why that rule is in, and as well as that, like why the minor grade went from under 18 to 17. But sure, the GA kind of make these decisions anyway, don't they?
Yeah. All right, lads, great stuff. We'll leave it there. We'll be back and we'll talk about some other talking points from the weekend. So the Football All-Stars were nominated on Friday. We missed these. We had the hurling ones on Thursday for Thursday's show. So, nothing really to be given out or complaining about here. Tyrone had 15 nominations, Lee, which I suppose, we were talking about Limerick having 15. Colin McShane got an All-Star nomination. What I thought was interesting, that 7 defenders nominated, and I was like, how the hell to have 7 defenders nominated? Both Conor Myler and Kieran McGeary got nominated in the backs. They're 2 wing forwards. Conor Myler played centre back on Paddy Clifford, which was fine, but he'd played wing forward in every other game. He was marking the wing back on the other team, and he was doing a similar man marking job. And McGeary played wing forward. He just did a lot of work back. I thought it was a weird one. Why they were picked as wing back nominations?
Yeah, the positions in the All-Stars is always a little bit strange like that, to be fair. Kieran McGeary did play that game at 6, but if you're talking about why did he get this nomination, is because of his performances in the half-forward line. From the very beginning, he took everyone's attention when Tyrone beat Donegal. He was just excellent that game, man of the match performance, and then he just built momentum from there. And it was as a half-forward and an attacking half-forward at that. The Conor Myler one's even stranger still, because it wasn't played anywhere else really. Half forward was his position. I think everyone expected that. It was one of the Dooher and Fergal, they could be a little bit unpredictable sometimes, but Conor Myler starting in half forward, that was just a sure thing. Everyone knew that was going to be the case. So I have no idea why they've nominated him in the back line, or who it was they're maybe trying to shoehorn in elsewhere, to make it happen. But it is definitely a strange one.
See, because they don't have to shoehorn anybody else really in. These are just nominations. They could have easily, the half-forward line, whenever that's picked, they might shoehorn people in. But you don't generally shoehorn nominations in. There are 2 nominations for Player of the Year, Niall. I'm going to start complaining about this. There are 2 nominations for Player of the Year and they're not even nominated in their positions. Just because they wear a number... McGeary wears. Does he wear? No, Peter Hart wears 7. But Myler wears 10. He plays wing forward. I'm not sure what McGeary wears number 6. Does he, Lee?
Yeah, he wore 6 in the semi-final, and now I'm trying to remember in the final which one he actually wore.
I know the game is so fluid now that it's hard to pick up. But when you're at the game, you can clearly see, what positions they're playing.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago, Wooly, you used to kind of beat the drum for a player should be definitely, they should be getting the All-Star for that position, and they should be competing against the people that are of the same position. And it used to be a case where if a lad was a corner forward, you'd be giving out about him being maybe getting a full forward, or a wing forward getting a corner forward. But now when you've a wing forward getting nominated as a defender, should that just it's kind of throws the whole thing wide open?
I think so. I think when you're Player of the Year, you should have an understanding of where these lads are bloody playing. That's what the problem I would have with it. I do agree with you, and I was always on the, I was always on the side that every player plays his position and goes head to head with the player in that position. Whoever had the best year wins the All-Star. The ladies' football have brought this to new levels this year because Vicky Wall wears number 13. And they do it that head to head, which I would applaud them for, but they've taken it to stupid levels in that Vicky Wall wears 13, but plays at centre forward or in midfield. And they've nominated her at number 13. Who else is nominated number 13? Amy Mackett. So Amy Mackett is going head to head with Vicky Wall for the number 13 jersey, even though Vicky Wall did not play as an orthodox corner forward. You know what I mean? They're right, and then they go get it arseways.
Yeah, like you can't take it too far, like in that sense. But like it's like when it's between like a wing forward and a corner forward, you wouldn't, like I certainly wouldn't. I don't know about you, Ollie, now, but I wouldn't mind about a lad kind of, if they're kind of in and around that forward line. It is very fluid nowadays. You wouldn't mind if it was maybe a corner forward missing for a wing forward, but just the fact of a defender coming for a wing forward, I think is it's a bit all over the shop.
Yeah, although wing forwards and wing backs in Gaelic football probably are interchangeable an awful lot of the time. I just don't know why they couldn't have got it right. Another problem I have is, Ali, we're talking in the hurling an awful lot that there's no standout young player of the year. Maybe it's because they're knockout championships and there's not as many games. You don't see some of the lesser teams. We have a situation where Dara Canavan, Matthew Tierney, are nominated. Now, Matthew Tierney played 2 games. Dara Canavan didn't start any game. Did he start a game? I'm pretty sure he didn't. He came on in the semi-final and the final. There used to be obvious young player of the years. Oisin Mullen obviously is the other one, and he'll probably win it. It's just I don't know. Why are we not seeing obvious candidates for young player of the year? Because Dara Canavan's not one as far as I'm concerned, and I don't think Matthew Tierney necessarily is. He played very well against Roscommon that day in the rain, but that was about it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely strange. Darren McCurry, everyone had a lot of high hopes for him, and he was definitely going to be a big part of Tyrone's plans this season. But it was just very unfortunate with injuries. They actually thought that he wasn't going to make it back at all, but then because of COVID issues and whatever else, he managed to make the semi-final and then the final.
Yeah,
as well.
Dara Canavan, you mean? Yeah, and he that's another thing. He missed most of the year with injured.
Yeah. I don't think he featured in Ulster, and unless it was the first game against Cavan where he picked up that injury, but I'm not too sure. He definitely. It was the season really late.
It was not the league. I think it was the league game down against Kerry.
It was maybe the league, yeah. So then he didn't even play in the province for Ulster in that championship. It was just the semi-final and the final. The only thing that you back him for, if you had to defend it, was just his quality when he was on. Obviously, he stood out on the pitch. He was a clear threat, and then he created some very important attacks that led to huge scores and stuff. But yeah, it's like you said. There should be a whole plethora of young footballers that you had to choose from, and it should be a difficult choice. But the fact of the matter is, Oisin Mullen is the only one. I think he won it last year as well, but he is the only real standout candidate. And the fact that he played the right amount of football and he played really well, and he's been a key part of Mayo's team. We can't really say Dara was a key part of this Tyrone team in terms of starting and the season as a whole. And then, like you say about Matthew Tierney, like in Galway, there was only 2 games, and it's a similar sort of situation. It's not enough quantity, for them to see the quality that they have. So it's Oisin Mullen for sure.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Now, it's nothing against Dara Canavan. If he hadn't been injured and made those kind of cameos right throughout the championship, you would probably say yes. But just 2 games, maybe getting a small bit of game time and then get nominated, it's definitely a strange one. Jack O'Connor's press conference as the Kerry manager I think it was last Friday, and he tried to explain his. I feel like we've talked about Jack O'Connor an awful lot on the show. He tried to explain his Kildare exit. He says there's been a bit of a misconception there. The thing that I left Kildare was because I was asked to manage Kerry, or that it was a done deal, is absolute and total nonsense. The situation Kildare was more or less, my mind was made up when we were beaten in the Leinster final. In fact, I was quite emotional in the dressing room afterwards because I had a fair idea that it was my last time meeting that bunch of players or addressing them. Had a great time in Kildare, couldn't have been more welcoming, but I was finding the almost 9-hour round journey was taking a huge toll. Even people close to me would have said that I'd lost a lot of weight around that time and that I can't afford to lose. suppose we take him at his word here, Niall. Like, I mean, it's hard to know. He said all his backroom team had stepped down. He'd said that he was emotional in the dressing room, speaking to the players there. A lot, his selectors, coaches, strength and conditioning had all kind of gone. He said he had no management team. I suppose if you're to take him at his word, he was happy to leave Kildare anyways. And it was Kildare had released a statement saying that he was in negotiations for the following year, and he explained that they had their own reasons for doing that I won't go into. So who knows?
Yeah, well, a lot of people say that one excuse is better than many excuses. I think Jack has maybe come out with a few excuses, whether it's the management team, the 9-hour trip, and I'd be prepared to take him at his word, but I know there's a few Kildare people who I've seen them kind of sticking into him a bit over it. They don't seem too happy with the way in which he's left Kildare, but yeah, I think we'll have to take him at his word anyway.
It's hard to know, Lee. Really, geez, a 9.5-hour journey. Like, and we're talking about Paddy Tally, who is even a bigger one. Paddy Tally's on a career break. Actually, that's how he's able to do that. I think he's on a year off teaching or something like that. But if his backroom team hadn't all stepped away, that could easily be found out. It could be easily found out in the lie that, his speech after the Dublin match, sounded like that was the end. He could easily be caught out on, different things. I think if you're in first, like the Kildare statement saying he was in negotiations, you tend to believe the first thing, that you heard rather than, what Jack's version of it coming out 3 weeks later.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I don't know why, I just have it in my head that he definitely knew something, that the rest of us didn't know in terms of the Kerry job, because it all worked out so perfectly for him, really. But like weirdly perfectly. I mean, I think like I'm painting him out like he's some evil genius, orchestrating everything here. But like, I just think he got whispers, and I'm not saying he went on the podcast to that Examiner podcast, to deliberately talk down Kildare and build himself up for a job. But he knew that, like, after that semi-final loss to Peter Keane, I think he knew that maybe he wasn't going to get kept on. I think he saw an opportunity, and yeah, I mean, if he was being really honest with it, I mean, like a 9-hour journey. I'm not saying that like that's really difficult. I'm sure that'd be an awful pain, but he, I don't know. When you come out and you say that you were willing to commit, and then obviously the background team dropping down, that's a big thing, I suppose. But I don't know. This will always follow him. I'm not too sure we'll actually ever figure out the truth.
Yeah, listen. I'm just taking. He hasn't won the 2 over by the sounds of things. Maybe I'm just sick of that story. Maybe we won't talk about Jack O'Connor here again on the show for a little while. Andy McEntee, we talked about this on Thursday. So he was voted down 8-7 by the county executive. Now, apparently he wants to stay on. So he's going to let the vote go to the club. But this is all getting messy. And it's not ideal in any county. And Anthony Miles was making some good points on Twitter. You can edit that bit out there, lads. He was saying, people on the executive who voted against ratifying the incumbent setup. Firstly, if they had issues, why wait until October, nearly 3 months since the team was knocked out of the championship? And second, what exactly are the issues and why did those individuals vote against him? They're two very good points that we didn't really mention, Niall, on Thursday. What are your issues and why did you wait this long? Because Anthony continues on. Thirdly, have they a ready-made team in place to begin? Because at best it would be until the middle to end of November before anyone could begin, and a lot of counties would be back already. So it doesn't make any sense. You're voting him out. You've wasted 3 months. Who's the management team? We're going to start now. That makes sense as well. And he says, if the management team win the club vote, what do these people on the executive do? Do they quit their post? Because you'd imagine relationships would be massively strained. So if the clubs vote in Andy McEntee, now the executive can overrule the clubs. But what kind of a mess is that then? You know what I mean? It really is a weird one. When they're coming off a decent year, the only thing I can think of is that it's after getting very, very messy after the dispute between Bernard Flynn and his management team, Graham Geraghty, Graham Riley, all these great, brilliant, fantastic management team. They walked away because McEntee wouldn't release 2 under-20s after agreeing. This is the under-20s version of the events. It must be related to that because it just looks very, very messy to be voted down at this late stage.
Yeah, like I remember when that under-20 management team was appointed initially, like it was such a high-profile team, like it was nearly a dream team of managers for the Meath under-20s, and like when that kind of went to pot, it was obviously a big kind of a a loss for Meath. And since then, and with this kind of controversy coming up about Andy McEntee, it's just been kind of one step forward, two steps back for Meath. And like, I know they won the Leinster Minor Championship this year, and it's sort of disappointing for these kind of things to be seeping into the underage structure. But yeah, the Andy McEntee one, it's kind of it's a strange one. Like, Anthony Miles definitely made a good few points there. I think he should be a part of the kind of decision making process himself. Like, because like the Meath County Board, they definitely would want to have something in place if they're planning on getting rid of Andy McEntee, because it's very late to be kind of giving your manager the road if you don't have someone to replace him and take the reins.
Very late. Wait until October. Like, I mean, and that's the big point of this. I thought Andy McEntee would step away after being voted down, but he's obviously not. So this is rumbling on now, Lee, and it's not an ideal situation, because by the time the clubs vote, then it comes back to the executive. How can Andy McEntee work with them? They're people he's working directly with. The majority don't want him, even though it's a pretty close vote. But at the same time, from the county board perspective, what are you doing here, lads? Why was this not done 2 weeks? Why was this meeting not held? Or why was Andy not given feedback on what the issues were an awful lot earlier than this?
Yeah. I'm listening very carefully to lots of GAA podcasts, and see in case some manager comes out and says that they're interested in the job now, and they'll get ahead of them, because maybe they know something they don't. I'll just pull a Jack O'Connor in that sense. But in terms of leaving it so late is so strange, because the season's ended, and I assume Andy McEntee is started making plans for the next season. After 3 months, like, that's loads of time to start, like, thinking about the next year. And clubs and games and players and whatever else, and putting his plans in place. So they just sort of, like, to me, this curveball just coming in out of nowhere this late on, it just upsets the full thing. And, like, fair play to him, he's not, because I just think, if it was me and I knew I didn't have the backing, then you're just sort of like a dead man walking in that role, because any little mistake, everything's going to be amplified and under the microscope, as it were. So I just think fair play to him, because he obviously thought, no, I'm gonna stick it to you. I'm gonna stay for this job regardless of what you think, and hopefully get the backing elsewhere. But it's twice the challenge for him now, and unless they do have someone lined up, or someone somewhere, like you say, maybe to do with the Bernard Flynn situation, is definitely unhappy with him, because, like, it doesn't make any sense. And usually when it doesn't make sense, it's because there's been a bust up or an argument behind the scenes, and it's all came to a head.
Yeah, I might get Bernard Flynn on the show Thursday, and he go, yeah, it's a very attractive job now, that senior job, and he can float it out. The under-20 management team come up and take the senior team. Then maybe that's what's going to happen. Billy Sheehan is the new Laois manager, it looks like. This will be a popular choice in Laois from anybody I've spoken to. Like, I mean, it's another Kerry man, which is just beyond belief, the amount of Kerry men we've had. John Sucru, Mike Quirk, Tommaso Flatterta, Liam Kearns, Mick O'Dwyer. We're all chasing that Mick O'Dwyer high that we got the first year he took us over in 2003. Billy, of course, he's a Kerry man, obviously born and bred, but Billy's played for so many clubs. Like, I mean, that's Kerry man's been watered down, and he played for Laois. He would be, look, it's a bit like John Sucru. John Sucru is a Kerry man who living in Laois and would have known the club scene. Billy would know the club scene really well in Laois, would know a lot of the players. I think it's a great appointment. He has Chris Conway in with him as well, who managed at schools level and got some fantastic results. Won a senior A or an under 16A schools with Knockbeg a good few years ago, so he'd be very well respected and liked. He's in as a coach selector. That was just kind of breaking this morning. So pretty happy with the appointment. We're not the most attractive county to manage, let's be honest. I was saying on the show when John Sucru got it, that's 6 years ago. When the players, obviously 6 years younger, we have players like Munnelly now, who's, 38. He's still on the go. Colin Begley's 35. John O'Loughlin is 32, 33. Mark Timmins is 35. We're a Division 3 team. They're our best players still. Donny Kingston's up into his 30s now. So, like, I mean, we don't have much coming through. So I think Billy's energy, his passion, he's obsessive. He'll have the whole summer off as a teacher, and he won't leave any stone unturned. I'm very happy with the decision. He has a graw for Laois. The Mike Quirk one was the weirdest one, where you're an unproven Kerry man commuting up to Laois. That didn't make any sense. So yeah, I think it's a very good appointment. I think Laois player. Let's be honest, we didn't have our pick of managers. And Billy. I'm not running down Billy's appointment in any way by saying that he's got intercounty experience. He's managed club teams. He's coached at college levels. He has been in a senior intercounty setup in Cork and in Offaly. So he's plenty of experience. I think it's the best appointment we could have hoped for. Niall.
Yeah, like Laois, I hate to say it to you, Wooly, but they have been kind of struggling the last few years, and
yeah.
Just when they're going out in games, you nearly expect them to be losing. But I think the Kerry lads, they seem to see something in Laois, so maybe Billy Sheehan is the man to bring it forward.
Yeah, I would say a lot of them see dollar signs maybe in Laois. But Billy, that's definitely not a accusation towards Billy, or to be honest, any of them. Let's be honest. Maybe they're getting their mileage. It's a long way to Kerry, right? So we don't know what mileage that some of them might negotiate. But that's the thing. Laois are in Division 3. Not a huge amount coming through. As I said, one way I was critical of Mike Quirk was on the show here is that he's playing teams like Down, and after the Down match, he's complaining that we don't have much pace in the team. And he's still playing that kind of 12 men behind the ball running game. If you don't have pace, mate, don't play that game. Down play that way because they have plenty of pace. Use what you have to your advantage. Don't follow the leader. Don't copy what everyone else is doing. What we have is that we have big physical forwards. Donny Kingston. We've Evan O'Carroll. We have Gary Walsh. You could put John O'Loughlin into the forwards. And I'm saying these things as in, where's your starting point there? Why don't you do something different? Why don't you launch a few in there? You know, get a few balls in there, Lee, and play differently to everybody else. And be like a physical, hard team to play against. Get stuck into, lads. Be known as a long ball team and own it. And go, Jesus, I don't like playing Laois. You might have to drop one or two lads back because they like pumping in. They drop 2 or 3 lads back. Run it then because you've way more men out the field. You know, I think too many teams are copying each other, basically, is my wider point, Lee.
Yeah. So you want Laois to be like the Stoke City?
Wimbledon 89, yeah. Wimbledon 89.
Yeah, but why not though? Like, why not become a team that's just so horrible to play against them when you know that you're going up against them, that you're going to be dragged to the trenches and deal with long balls all night and really have to you're just going to have to dig in to get your win, and they're going to really nullify the way that you want to play football instead of just going up against a team that plays the same type of football as you do
in a worse way
to a lower standard. Yeah, because then that just, you're literally going tit for tat. You go, I go, and then the better person's always going to come through. But tactically, if they set up, like you say, more of a kicking game, launching a few and just owning that and building the whole thing around it, then it definitely is an option. What do you think is success then for Billy this season in terms of Laois?
Well, I suppose it depends what structure comes in. You know, he'd want to be up in the top 3 or 4 in Division 3. It depends, I suppose, what structure. If you're playing the Plan B structure, which we hope we're all in, you'd want to hope that you could be in the mix to get that first place in Division 3. If not, you're looking at winning the Tailteann Cup. So it's a fantastic potential year because Laois could easily win the Tailteann Cup and we could all celebrate it, and it would be a fantastic season to come off the back of 7 championship games, maybe win 4 of them home and away, and then go into the Tailteann Cup after a positive enough Division 3 campaign and get into a final or win that, and you're in Croke Park, and just give Laois supporters something to shout about. I suppose it is that Laois. Otherwise, what are you hoping for to win it? You don't know what the Leinster draw is. So, I don't know. I think the expectations in Laois are dropping more and more every year. But anyways, I think Billy will do an excellent job, and Chris as well, which has to be pointed out. Last story of the weekend, lads, is this fight in the Wicklow match. I presume you've seen this footage doing the rounds. It's hard to look at now, to be honest, and it's an under 15 game, and I wouldn't always see the fight because the fight there wasn't much going on in the fight. I'm talking about doing it in front of 15 and 14-year-old children. That's the disturbing part of it. These are adults, and I don't know. It was an under 15 final between Carnew and Kilcool. It was played in the GA, in the Wicklow GA Centre of Excellence, and adults fighting. Again, I always say that when you see incidents like this and it's like a big GA problem, and there's no doubt that's a problem, But when you see the hundreds of games going on, it's such a small problem. I would say I remember an under-14 game playing with Portlaoise against Stradbally. And we got all players just looked around and we looked over the sideline. And here's two men rolling around the ground, kind of fighting each other. And like these are very respectful men, respectable men in both communities, and they just obviously lost their minds for a second. And I don't know. Like I mean, I remember in a senior challenge match down in Wexford, looking over the sideline. My father was a selector, getting in an altercation with one of our own selectors. These things do happen where things boil over. And like my father wouldn't be like me. He wouldn't get involved in that kind of stuff. He'd be a quiet man, you know. So like I mean, these things do happen with people out of character. Now there was 2 or 3 people in this video, and I'll probably running at the one lad. It didn't look good, and it's in front of children as well. I'm not condoning it. I'm saying often these things can happen, even with people that you would never expect it.
Yeah, like I don't know if you'd agree with me, Wally, but a lot like when you mentioned the under-14 match there, I find that a lot of these rows in GA games are actually at underage games, and I'd say the reason is because when parents have their children involved, they just become completely unreasonable, like.
But overprotective. So I was looking, say if my son, he's only 4, he's going on 5, but if he was playing an under-9s match, which wouldn't be too far, and he got hit hard, I'd be making sure the referee knows, you know, that maybe that overprotective kind of parent side comes out in it as well.
Yeah, and a lot of times that can, I suppose, cause it to boil over, like as we seen in Wicklow at the weekend. But I think, yeah, the toughest thing to watch about that video was definitely just, you see, you're kind of watching it. It's not too stable, the camera work, but you see the odd kid, they're just walking through kind of the middle of this big melee, and they're looking at parents rowing, and like there was a parent running up to a selector saying, "You hit my son," and it was very kind of, it was tough to watch now. And nearly
was there a case that an adult came in and hit one of the children?
Well, that was just one of the you could hear that being said to I don't know if it was a mentor or whatever, but it is very, the toughest thing to watch about the video, I think, was the person videoing it said, like, would someone stop and call the cops? And she's there videoing the whole thing on her phone herself. Like, if it wasn't so important to video, she could have called the guards herself. Like, but no, it is. You don't like to see these things, but I think it is a thing of, sometimes it is just an overprotective parent, and they get involved with another parent, and like these things, they start out of something small, and then before you know it, everyone's involved. Like,
yeah, disturbingly, there's no point in saying anything else. Like, I mean, there's not much else we can say about this. And I'm not condoning it in any way. Of just saying a few isolated incidents kind of happen with people you'd never expected. Again, in the underage games, like if there was a situation where an adult came in and put his hands on a 15-year-old, 14-year-old child, like, I mean, that's just completely despicable behaviour. You would hope that didn't happen, and it was just between adults on either side.
Yeah, I mean it's assault, you know. Otherwise, like, I mean, it goes much further than the GAA in that situation. But yeah, there's nothing really more you can say. I mean, because it is video recorded, and you know, hopefully some of them people can be identified and they can be suspended, because like, who knows what impact that'll have on them kids, and like they may not want to go and play for their club again, or why would they go to the next match, you know, to hear that sort of abuse and see what it could actually lead to, or even worse still, it normalizes it for them, and they think, oh, that's what you do at GAA games. You know, you become involved in that, you start fights, and that's what I need to do then, because I want to be like dad or whatever else. So yeah, I mean, it's a disgrace. Like, there's nothing short of it. And in front of the children, like, I do think Niall's, he's hit the nail on the head when he says that overprotective parents is definitely the issue there. And anyone who's coached kids or in any sport, the parents definitely can become far too involved. You know, they feel like everything that happens on the pitch, every blow, every tackle, and whatever else, and then they behave, I'm sure, in ways that they wouldn't normally behave, or you'd like to think. But yeah, it's definitely not an epidemic. You know what I mean? It's not like it's all the time or it happens constantly. But I just think when it does happen and you have the footage, let's, you know, make a statement then and say, he suspended, she suspended, he suspended. This is why, for these reasons, and, you know, and make that public as well, and say that, you know, that something's actually being done, and hopefully that'll discourage it happening again.
Yeah, you often hear these stories coming out of Wicklow, to be fair, you do. And that's a good point that Lee made, in that there's always clubs in every county that you just know they like fighting. If you're beating them by 5 or 6 points, you need to have your wits about you, because they'll get 1 or 2 sent off, and they probably grew up seeing fathers getting sent off when they're losing. They don't know any better. And teams that like to fight and are coming in off sideline, teaching the children that that's what you do if a decision goes against you. Like, it's just that's probably the saddest thing of the whole thing. And those kids playing the games, they will grow up thinking that if a refereeing decision goes against them, well, F this, I'm getting sent off, because that's the reaction I've always seen, or I'm starting a fight. And I mean, that's the saddest thing of it. And it's a culture within clubs, because the clubs in your county where that culture exists. And it's like one generation just passes that shit onto the next.
And then when you're going up to play that club in a game, you're kind of bringing your A game. You're like, right, well, we're going to meet fire with fire here, like, just because you're going to be hit hard, so you're ready to kind of give it back when it's given to you, like. So it kind of just a bit of a chain reaction, and it all kind of kicks off then. But like, yeah, as you said, it is a bit of a problem in Wicklow, and that you'll always remember that famous story of the referee being locked in the boot of his car, like. And I think there has been, like, you'd often see videos, and more often than not, more often than other counties, I'd say, there seems to be that culture in Wicklow for one reason or another.
Yeah, I think that was Carthage Buckley. That was the referee in 1986. Carthage Buckley sent off 2 Laois players. Laois were tipped to win Leinster that year. They'd already won the National League, and they went down. That's where the Battle of Aughrim came out of. I don't think he was locked in the car, and that was like an urban myth. He was under a lot of pressure, let's just say, coming off that field. But I don't think the locking in the boot of the car ever happened. Anyways, listen, lads, we've gone over time. We'll leave it there. We'll be back on Thursday. We look ahead to all the weekend's club action as usual. So we'll talk to you all then. Good luck.